All right, college hoop fans, we are back for a Saturday Nightcap live on college basketball coast to coast. I am the somewhat competent host, TJ Reeves. Tons of hoops to keep up with. I do the best I can. He is my wingman, back in the saddle after working the Pro Bowl all last weekend in Orlando. We're going to get you back to the round ball sport, Jason Powers, of the Powers on Sports podcast and college basketball coast to coast. Happy Saturday night. A lot to go over on the live program. How are things?
One more day of the football season, then it is nothing but the race to Selection Sunday.
Amen. Believe it or not, we're 5 weeks away from Selection Sunday, about to be here. Not immediately, but we can see it in the distance. Can't smell it or taste it yet, but you can see it in the distance. Thank you for finding us. Again, we are live all over all of the different platforms on college basketball coast to coast, on YouTube, under College Basketball Coast to Coast, the channel. On Facebook, find us on Facebook. We're sharing that out. The CBB Coast to Coast Twitter handle as well. And if you're hearing us after the fact on Sunday in podcast form, make sure to be with us on Saturday nights when we go live on all the platforms. But some of you may be hearing us after the fact. On all the podcast outlets, just search College Basketball Coast to Coast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, etc. I love all the insight. In a few moments, Adam Zagoria will be here from NJ.com and the Zags blog. Jason, he was in the house for St. John's and the win over UConn. He'll give a firsthand account of that. Just as a quick side from you, how impressive was that from the Johnnies as they get to 12-1 in the Big East?
We are going back to 1985. Louis Carnesecca, Mullen, Walter Berry, Lennington. Great to have St. John's back in the national spotlight, back in the mix, back and being a major factor on the East Coast, because it's with Patino, just all the drama, Carnesecca passing away, just a great story.
New York City very much alive and electric for St. John's basketball, really for the first time in we're going on 25 plus years that they've been this good this late in the season, only his second year there. So Adam's going to talk a lot about that. We should not bury the lead. Real quick, Duke was beaten tonight by Clemson in a close battle. Cooper Flagg did not have a good first half, but came on. Good Lord, did he come on in the second half. Yet Clemson made the plays, Jason, made the free throws, got a key stop. We're going to talk to Adam about this, but I want your thought real quick. When Flagg lost his footing on the floor, that wasn't the whole game, but it was big. And Clemson gets the win over Duke. Their unbeaten ACC season no more after 12 straight wins. Jason Powers.
And when you look at the ACC standings, Clemson's what, 11-2, 10-2, or 11-2.
Yeah.
I mean, they've
behind
had a
them.
terrific year, and I know that ACC's quote unquote down a little bit, but give Brad Brownell credit. This guy's survived a lot of years at Clemson. He's had to, battle building that program. The administration has given him time, and he has done a really, if you really look at his resume the last 7-8 years at Clemson, he's done a really good job.
They made the Elite Eight last year. Alabama denied them the Final Four in the Elite Eight game with a couple of the upsets that they had. So that's a solid job. And again, Duke's win streak goes by the wayside. We'll talk more with Adam Zagoria about that in a moment. And did I say win streak goes by the wayside? How about Auburn? My hand is up. Who had this? Not me. I thought Auburn was going to lock Florida down and win again in their jungle on the plains. Instead, the Gators, did they put a 90 burger? What was the final of that game?
79, 90-78.
Did they put a 90 burger on the best defense right now in college basketball? I believe they did. Quick thought on that.
And they basically led that game from wire to wire. I was listening to the game on the radio, to the Florida broadcast. They were in control of that game for much of that game. And, when you really look at this Florida team, this team might be top 3 or 4 in the country. I mean, I know they're 6, but I'm talking about they are a serious threat now to win a national title with the Golden stuff kind of over their head here. That's been resolved a little bit for the most part. This Florida team is dangerous. 22 assists today, 13 threes. Look out for the Gators.
Yeah, no doubt that they have experience. Elijah Martin, the former Final Four player with Florida Atlantic a couple of years ago, he's transferred.
Didn't play today. Didn't play today.
Right, he didn't even play. Clayton was back off an ankle injury who didn't play against Vanderbilt. And their bigs can score. And again, it's one thing to be scoring a bunch in the SEC, but to score a bunch at Auburn with that defense, And that's a game again that finishes a 9-point game. They led by 22 at one point. Florida, impressive performance as they stop Auburn's win streak. So the whole debate's on about who's the number one team, etc.
TJ Reeves, who would have thought the basketball powers of college basketball would be in the state of Alabama?
Yeah, Alabama and Auburn for sure. Alabama, by the way, in progress, was leading by as many as 18 in the second half at Arkansas. Final 3.5 minutes, and Alabama only leads by 8 here. So Arkansas has played hard. John Calipari's team, of course, the back-to-back wins over Kentucky and then midweek over Texas.
Yep.
So 2 impressive road wins. And is Alabama maybe on the verge of coughing up an 18-point second-half lead? It's now 6 after a flying dunk by Arkansas late in the game. And they've gotten another stop and gotten the ball back. Alabama clearly rattled here. The talk on the broadcast has been with the Auburn and the Duke loss. While we do this live, again on the podcast, you know the outcome, and we'll know the outcome here in a little bit. Was Alabama going to take over the number 1 spot? Well, Arkansas just bombed in a 3, and it's now a 3-point game with under 3 minutes to go as the rally is on. I don't know what this run is, but it's something close to 8-0 or 10-0 to get them back in the game. Down 3 in the final 3 minutes. We'll keep you posted on that. But it makes you wonder if Auburn might remain the number 1 team if Duke has lost and Alabama doesn't hang on to this lead late in the game. Thought on that?
But in Bud Walton Arena, man, that's why they brought Calipari in to get that arena jumping. They give them credit. You made a great point. They've played hard the last 2.5 weeks or so, played much better, more of a team effort. Boogie Fland is done for the year. They've seemed to galvanize since he left. And you're right. I don't know what does the pollsters do? Who's the number 4 rated team in the country?
And that's a good question on the topsy-turvy.
Could Florida go all the way
coming? Yeah, Florida was 4.
Loses. Could they go to number 1?
Maybe it's Florida and Houston was 5 coming into play today, and they won.
Yeah. So
is it them? Is it somebody else up near the top? Our buddy, right now in the top 25. We'll see.
Our buddy Chris Stewart's got a Maylocks moment the last 3 minutes here with Fayetteville on the call.
Yes, indeed. So we'll keep you up to date on that. Again, it's college basketball coast to coast. We're live on the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. While we kind of peek at the end of this, let's get some more insight on the Duke defeat. And again, Adam Zagoria, our insider, was there for the St. John's win. I want the feeling from inside Gamble Pavilion as the Johnnies have done what they have done. Let's go to a conversation, Jason Powers, that I had with Adam just a little earlier this evening on all of these subjects here on college basketball coast to coast. And as promised, here he is, Adam Zagoria, our insider, NJ.com, as well as the Zags blog. What a win for Clemson in the upset, as we have mentioned here at the beginning of the show. They derailed Duke, and their 18-game win streak goes by the boards. What a performance by them. Adam, welcome. Clemson making all the free throws at the end. Controversial little moment where Cooper Flagg slipped in a key situation, down 2 on the floor that had not been wiped up by the Clemson staff. I know the Dukies are going to complain about that, but hey, there were still plays to be made after that. Clemson made the plays, made the foul shots, so welcome in. And Duke goes by the board in that matchup we just watched earlier tonight.
Yeah, I think it was a 16-game winning streak, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But either way, it was a lot of games in a row. And yeah, it was. I mean, look, the number 1 ranking was there for Duke to take because Auburn lost earlier today to Florida, which has now beaten the number 1 team twice this season. So if Cooper Flagg and Duke had taken care of business, they would have been the number 1 on Monday. It was unfortunate there that Cooper slipped on the, sweat or perspiration on the court, whatever it was. And, he cramped at the end of the game. He struggled. And anyway, it's a huge win for Clemson and Brad Brownell. And now it seems like if Alabama takes care of business against Arkansas, Alabama will be number 1.
Looks like it'll be that way. And again, for Flagg, only 4 points in the first half. Hit 2 big shots late in the game, as you mentioned, with the cramps. But the story was more Clemson. How about this? This is the 5th straight time they played a top 5 team that includes Duke and have won all of those games. and that includes in the NCAA tournament run last year. So give them credit. You mentioned the Auburn loss to Florida. Are we at the stage right now in college basketball where we just have to expect the unexpected? Even when these teams are rolling along, Auburn had won 14 straight. They're at home, and Florida put it on them. Just as a general comment, anything goes right now, even up at the top. You can't say that it's a guarantee even at home, right, in conference play.
Yeah, well, two things. I mean, one, I think people are sleeping on Florida a little bit just because, they're not maybe Auburn or Alabama brand-wise or whatever, but they've now beaten the number one team twice. They beat Tennessee earlier, and now they've beaten Auburn on the road. Florida is a legit, Final Four type team. Walter Clayton, the guard who transferred from Iona, played for Rick Pitino at Iona, had a tremendous game today, big time game. And, number two, the SEC is just, it's brutal, man. I mean, on any night, anything could happen.
Very true. Well put on that. I love the insight of Adam Zagoria, who was in the house for the St. John's win at UConn. Better than me try to set it up. How impressive was that in person, especially down the stretch of the game with the way they guarded, etc., and the Johnnies get the win over the two-time champs? What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, look, going into Gamble, on the campus at UConn is a hostile environment. It was cold. There was a lot of, fans there. They were all drinking. They were into it. And, Dan Hurley had beaten Rick Pitino 4 times in a row before this game. Once in the NCAA tournament when UConn beat Iona 2 years ago, and then UConn beat St. John's 3 times last year. Hold on one second. I'm letting my dog in this room because she's barking out here.
We love this as part of the College Basketball Coast to Coast Live Show. We even got a shot of the dog when you pan the camera down. I love it. The dog makes an appearance here on the show. But you mentioned Hurley had some mastery over Pitino, and do you think that motivated him a little more on this, or not a big deal because Pitino is who he is and he's a Hall of Fame coach anyway?
I don't think that factors into it. Do I think, Rick enjoys getting that win? Yes, I do. I mean, UConn dominated the first 5 or 10 minutes of the game. They made 4 out of their first 7 threes. And then St. John's went to a full court press in the second half. They forced, I think, 22 turns and scored 18 points off the turns. The good news is UConn got Liam McNeely back. He played well. I think he had 18 for UConn. But their point guard play is a little sus now, as the kids say. Hassan Diarra's, injured. He had, I think, 6 turnovers. Ahmad Noel, the freshman, didn't play. So Danny said after the game he's optimistic going forward, and, that he has to figure out another ball handler or 2. But, they do have a month to get Liam back integrated. But the fact is they're just not the team they were last year with Donovan Clingan and those NBA guys. St. John's, meantime, has won 10 in a row. They're up to like a 4 seed in the bracketology, and they're legit.
And defensively, this is old school, mid-range offense, defense lockdown. This is like 1980s and 90s basketball at times, is it not? Again, you had a firsthand look at it.
Yeah, I mean, look, St. John's is not a team that shoots the ball great. They don't have any great, 3-point shooters. But Dan Hurley afterwards talked about their physicality, their rebounding. Rick talked about how he went to the press. They've got a lot of older veteran guys, Kadari Richmond, Davon Smith, Zuby Ejiofor, RJ Lewis is starting to look like an NBA prospect. And they, after not having a ranked win all season, they beat Marquette and UConn back-to-back this week. St. John's is going to get Villanova on Wednesday. UConn's got a huge game at Creighton on Tuesday. Creighton, we haven't talked about here. TJ has quietly won 9 in a row after beating Marquette today. So at the top of the Big East, you've got St. John's, winners of 10 in a row, and Creighton 9 in a row.
Good point. They did beat Marquette earlier today, 77-67. Just as one more general comment, I mean, this looks like the Big East tournament. This is what they want. Could go any one of about 4 or 5 different directions right now with the way St. John's and Creighton have played as of late. We got a long way to go. We still got a month to go before that tournament, but it appears to be 4 or 5 teams you could make the case to win the thing, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, St. John's, Creighton, Marquette, and Connecticut are the 4 best teams. Seeding will be really important. I mean, if it's St. John's as the 1 and UConn as the 4, they could potentially meet in the semis. And also in terms of NCAA tournament seeding, I think St. John's, if they win the regular season and say get to the finals of the Big East tournament, now you're talking about maybe they're a 3 seed. Maybe they stay in the East region and play the East regionals in Newark and New Jersey. So you could have Cooper Flag and Duke in New Jersey. You could have St. John's there.
Wow.
Maybe Kansas and or Kentucky. So, that could be a lot of fun.
Could be. This guy is always a lot of fun. I know you've been busy. He's writing all about the Big East and more at NJ.com, as well as the Zags blog, and plenty of recruiting there. Just one more plug. Plenty of recruiting as well with the Zags blog, right? And keeping up with all these top recruits. Any tip here off the weekend about any of the recruits?
Just that we had the Metro Classic in New Jersey, which is a big event in New Jersey, and Dan Hurley and Kamani Young, after the Connecticut game last night, were slated to go see Darius Adams tonight. He's a class of 2025 guard committed to UConn, so they were going to go check him out on Saturday night.
All right, so look out for that player, for Adams, the high school star. Listen, I always love your insight as we progress along here now in February, March, not too far away. And the more we watch, the less we know, especially up at the top. And we love it. Adam Zagoria, thank you. We appreciate it as always on College Basketball Coast to Coast.
Talk to you soon, TJ.
All right. Again, Adam with us earlier tonight. Appreciate his time and his insight. We are live now, live on College Basketball Coast to Coast and the Nightcap on the platforms on YouTube, on Facebook, as well as Twitter. All right, Mr. Powers, let's catch everybody up. You and I were kind of peeking at this while the Adam conversation was playing. Arkansas has not only gotten within striking distance, they've got the ball with a chance to tie with a 3 late in the game. Give me some analysis on how the last 2 or 3 minutes have played out.
No, just Arkansas has played defense. They were down 3 with about 38 seconds left. Played a possession of defense. Alabama missed the 3. They called timeout here. Looks like they got about 7 seconds to go in the game. Got the ball at half court. Question is, if you're Alabama, do you foul?
Absolutely, you do. You grab whomever it is, especially as soon as they start to make any kind of move towards the basket here. You have to do that. Yep. It's proven time and again. So,
and by the way, about the minute and a half mark, did you see Grant Nelson catch the rebound on the air ball? Looked like he traveled. Looked like he hopped before he laid it up.
Yeah, I've got a little extra hop and a lay-in.
No call there. So.
All right, so again, you and I will peek at the end with Arkansas inbounding down 83-80 and 7 seconds left, and Alabama does grab Big Z Ivisic for the foul. And so now the strategy becomes, does Arkansas make the 2? There's 5 seconds or thereabouts. They're going to probably look at the clock. So that's plenty of time to try to get a steal, and if not, foul Alabama and have one more chance at the very end. So, again, this was an Alabama, if you're just joining us, this was an Alabama 18-point lead in the second half. They've led comfortably the whole way until the final 4 minutes or so, when it was a 12-2 Arkansas run that got them close. They're currently down 3, shooting 2 free throws, and Big Z has bricked the first free throw. Yeah. So now you got to basically, as we do this on the fly, you got to miss the second one on purpose here to try to grab the ball and shoot the 3. You can't play the free throw game now, even down 2, because Alabama can go ice it at the other end with 5 seconds left. So I will say this, Alabama has let Arkansas back in, but Arkansas has played hard and made the plays. Give Calipari's team credit.
Valiant effort by Arkansas. Win or lose, this is a continued good work here by Arkansas and Calipari. This will be a dangerous team in the SEC tournament as we move forward. If they could somehow get to 7 and 9, 8 and 10 in the conference, they probably could get a bid if they could get to 8 and 10.
They still have a rough part of their schedule. Still got to play Auburn, still got to play Texas A&M, et cetera. All right, so he did make the second free throw to make it a 2-point game, and Alabama inbounded and was fouled. We'll keep you up to date on what happens with the free throws with 4.5 seconds left, up 2. Alabama possibly to be the number one team come Monday in the AP poll with the Auburn loss and the Duke loss. If Arkansas somehow, some way, Houdini's this, then is Auburn going to remain the number one team? That's a great argument. We'll update you on whatever happens here, as that's the most prominent game going on right now. Number 3, Alabama playing at Arkansas, up 2 in the waning seconds with former USF transfer Chris Youngblood, a Tuscaloosa native, the transfer at the line. He's made the first, and now this can ice the game to go up by 4 with under 5 seconds left if he makes the second one. Youngblood led that USF team to the amazing regular season title in the American Conference. Jason, we were all around this in Tampa last year, but he missed the second free throw, and Arkansas fumbles the ball out of bounds as we do this on the fly, and it's Alabama ball up 3 with 3 seconds left. They're going to have to foul them as soon as they inbound the ball, or the game's going to be over. Ivisic had a chance at the rebound and fumbled it while being contested out of bounds. And Alabama appears on the verge of surviving here in the waning seconds in this SEC showdown at Fayetteville at Bud Walton Arena, Jason.
Quick comment about what Adam said about St. John's. How interesting is it that Patino's team, not a good three-point shooting team, who we know he loves to shoot the three, a gritty, just grinded out kind of defensive team. Interesting that Patino is winning that way with the mid-range game, and that's not the analytics of college basketball these days.
And they're not a very good free throw shooting team either. Right. They've been poor at times, and so we'll wait and see if that comes back to bite them in March. But you can't argue with what we've now seen. What is that, 9 in a row or 10 in a row for them? Which may be they and Creighton may have the longest.
Creighton with 9 in a row.
Creighton 9 in a row, and I believe St. John's now has 10 in a row after the win. 12-1. They've never been 12-1 in the Big East. That 85 Final Four team started 8-1 in the Big East, and Syracuse beat them in the 10th game to go 8-2. Chris Mullen, Mark Jackson, like you mentioned, Walter Berry. That team went all the way to the Final Four, though, as the Big East regular season champs. So, again, that's St. John's with the win at UConn. They validate the win over Marquette earlier in the week by beating UConn at UConn. Out of the timeout, Alabama gets the ball in, and Chris Youngblood, I believe, is fouled again with 1 second left, and that's going to all but end the game for the Crimson Tide to survive. And will they be the new number one team coming up? It is college basketball coast to coast. TJ Reeves, Jason Powers with you as this Saturday Nightcap continues live. If you're hearing us after the fact in podcast form, we do this live on Saturdays on the social media platforms of college basketball coast to coast, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Thank you for finding us and engaging with us. Make some comments. If you're seeing us on YouTube, if you're seeing us on Facebook or on Twitter, we'll see the comments as people are weighing in. And we have been talking about St. John's being the new beast of the Big East right now. Creighton also a contender.
How about Creighton? Is that you can make an argument that may be the biggest home court advantage in the country. How many teams have they beaten at home in the last 4 or 5 years?
Absolutely.
I mean, that Omaha arena in Omaha is electric when they love their Blue Jays in Omaha.
Yeah, give credit to Greg McDermott and what he has built there at Creighton, who beat Marquette today. And don't they have the win, I'll double check, over UConn in that building, to your point, earlier this year. They rarely lose in the downtown Omaha arena. It is 9 straight wins, and Creighton now trails St. John's by a game. They're 11-2. St. John's is 12-1. And yes, Creighton in that building. Creighton actually beat UConn at UConn.
They play this week. Adam said they play this week.
Earlier in the year, the lone loss for St. John's is at Omaha, at Creighton in conference play. They also beat Kansas earlier in the year in that building. Yeah. So they have some magic working. By the way, they're in the handshake line. Alabama made one of the 2 free throws and survived 85-81. Give credit again to Nate Oates as his team tried to cough up the lead, Jason Powers, here tonight, but they have survived in Fayetteville this evening And Alabama now poised to be the new number one team in the country. They were in the Final Four a year ago. I was right there in the desert with our buddy Chris Stewart and with all the Alabama Crimson Tide fans. They hung in for a little while with UConn with the gunning three-pointers, etc. Veteran players, Sears and Nelson and a couple of the others were on that Final Four team. Youngblood is a veteran player that had a lot of success in the regular season with USF last year. There's no reason why Alabama won't be a big threat in March. Agreed?
Absolutely agree. You got the pedigree. You got some inside outside. They don't have to live and die, but that Diabate kid is a really good player for them. They've got bigs that can shoot the three, can play inside with Nelson. This is a major threat in the SEC for sure.
Just looking at the final numbers here, Grant Nelson led Alabama with 15. I believe Sears, we will double check. At last check, he had 11. He did finish with 11 in the game. Alabama only 5 of 19 from three-point range, Jason. That's a bit surprising. Despite scoring 85 points, a lot of it was not the three-point shot. And in fairness, it was a 6-point halftime game. They led by 18 at one stage in the second half, and Arkansas closed with a 12-2 run to within one possession, but got fouled down 3, missed one free throw, made the second. Then Alabama hit the 2 key free throws at the end, and they are victorious tonight to improve to 9-1 in SEC play with that win. It is college basketball coast to coast in our live program. Where do you want to go next? Do you want to go back to the Duke loss tonight? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I want to go to the ACC because if you look at the ACC standings now, you've got 5 teams that are now 9-3 or better. So that league is, slowly. I know it's bottom, it's weak at the bottom, but the top 5 teams with I think SMU is at 9-3 now in 5th place. You're looking at probably 4 teams, maybe 5 bids out of that league now with SMU at 9-3.
We'll look at the analytics in a moment. Louisville would be one of those teams, along with Clemson, that you got to believe is a shoe-in. Maybe Wake Forest. North Carolina, not at the moment, although they did get a revenge 1-point win over Pitt, 67-66, a game they desperately needed. They had dipped to 6-5 in conference play. They got that win today. Wake Forest won at Cal, at Berkeley earlier in the day. To your point, Duke now at 12-1 leads Louisville and Clemson by a game. They're both 11-2. Wake Forest is now 10-3 in ACC play. And I'm looking at the net rankings of these teams. Again, the net, you want to be somewhere around the 30s or the 40s in the net ranking.
You have to think those 4 are in, right?
Duke is 2. Louisville is 28. Clemson is 33. Wake Forest is 66 in the net, 1-6 against quad 4. SMU is 39 in the net, but they don't have a quad 1 win. So 1-6 for Wake Forest in the quad 1, 0-4 for SMU. So I don't know that they get a 4th team. It might have to be a bid stealer, Jason, that wins the ACC tournament. That's able to get that when they play the ACC tournament in, I believe they play that one in Charlotte. They play it in Charlotte. And then they've got a first round of the regional in Raleigh. I mean, it stands that Duke, for the moment, won't leave the state of North Carolina in March for a while if they keep winning the way that they have. But again, credit Clemson for being able to take it from them. But Cooper Flagg hit the big shots for those that are just joining us. He hit 2 big threes to get them in front, but then Clemson hit the free throws, got the stops. Flagg a turnover where he lost his footing again. That's reminiscent of what happened at the end of the loss to Kansas in the Champions Classic.
Yep.
Which I believe that's the last time that Duke had lost was to Clemson in the Champions Classic. So great performance by Clemson in a win that they needed muchly tonight in the ACC. While we talk, again, we go coast to coast with all of this. Let's talk Big Ten for a couple of moments. Yep. Michigan State had a lost 4 or 5 days in SoCal. Izzo already not a fan of why do we have USC and UCLA in this conference? He goes out to Los Angeles, loses to both the Trojans first and then to UCLA. But Michigan State did get back on track today. Not before, Jason. They were down by double figures in the first half and roared back in the second half. Impressive, including Jace Richardson, the son of Jason Richardson, the all-world Michigan State and NBA player. Thoughts here from you on Michigan State? Did they regain some footing with this win today?
They did, and Izzo ties Bob Knight for the most wins in Big Ten history as a head coach. So shout out to Tom Izzo, who, by the way, is from the same small hometown in Upper Michigan as my mother, by the way. That's the smallest of small towns up in Iron Mountain.
And if I'm correct, in that town is Steve Mariucci, the former 49ers coach and the current NFL Network analyst. He and Izzo, I think,
big buddies.
Andor were big friends.
Oh yeah,
all throughout like junior high school, and so on. Before both became very famous as coaches, and in Mariucci's case as a broadcaster. And Mama Powers is from that town.
Right there. How about Oregon slide? We talked to Matt Zemek a couple weeks ago. He thought Oregon had an opportunity. They're now 5-8 in the Big Ten. They're going the wrong direction big time. And a team I know you like, UCLA, getting it together. It slowly and quietly just continues to rise up the standings in the Big Ten.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Bruins in a second, but back to Oregon. That is now 6 losses in 7 games for them. They are taking their lumps in a couple of early games, a couple of early important games. So in the net rankings, again, Purdue leads the conference 11-2. Michigan and Michigan State, Jason, who we have not talked about Michigan yet. Michigan State 10-2, Michigan 10-2. Michigan won at somebody's Indiana Hoosiers earlier this afternoon in a close game. All right, so the net rankings, Purdue is 8, Michigan is 17, Michigan State is 22. By the way, Wisconsin victorious earlier today as well in the Big Ten. And UCLA, we should be talking a little more about them. They have been quietly putting it together here as we talk about them on college basketball coast to coast. The Bruins win again today over Penn State. They've beaten Oregon recently. They went up to Washington and won. Remember, they beat Michigan State earlier in the week.
Yep.
This week, Mick Cronin's team has begun to put it together, Jason, right now in the Big Ten race, as they are now 9-4 in conference play.
They must have listened to his meltdown. They must have taken heed to the points during the meltdown that he was crushing them, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. So, but yeah, give UCLA, they got players. Say what you want about, they got players. I mean, they always have players, whether they're tough enough, whether they're more finesse versus how Mick Cronin likes to play, kind of grind it out. That's a different story. But UCLA gets players. And if they can score the ball, we typically defend pretty well. So scoring has always been their issue. Can they get to 70, 75 points? And if they do, they typically defend well enough to win these games.
Sebastian Mack had 14-15 for Kobe Johnson today. They weren't dynamic, 5 of 19 from 3, but they grinded out the rebounds, 35-33. They turned Penn State over 18 times in a 78-54 win. And they've got the 2 bigs. Bilodeau has been injured. He was back today, 11 points, 2 rebounds, and a block. Mara is the other 7-footer. He had 5 points, 3 rebounds, and a block. So they got, out of 30 minutes from those guys, they got 16 points and about 6 or 7 rebounds and 3 blocks, or 2 or 3 blocks in the game from those big guys. And UCLA quietly now putting it together. Again, their net ranking at the moment is 26. And really, I mean, the Big Ten, Illinois won at Minnesota tonight. They're 14 in the net ranking. The net ranking isn't everything, but I mean, Illinois' got 6 quad 1 wins. UCLA's got 6 quad 1 wins. Wisconsin's got 7 quad 1 wins. Purdue's got 7 themselves.
They're getting in.
Maryland is 16 in the net. They've got 5 quad 1 wins. They lost the tough game to Ohio State back on Thursday night. The Buckeyes are 25 in the net. They've got 5 quad 1 wins. I mean, strong argument. Big Ten's going to get 9 teams in, maybe even get 10 teams in at this point, Jason. It's that good of a conference. Indianapolis is where they will play the Big Ten tournament coming up. And this doesn't even take into account maybe a bid stealer or 2 finding a way to win. Again, love all of the insight. We'll be here for a few more minutes. We didn't talk enough about Purdue. I heard you mention Purdue and Braden Smith, one of the holdover guards from the Final Four team, playing at a tremendously high level for Purdue right now. And we look forward to seeing what they can do. They whacked USC on Friday night at home, and I'm just looking for Braden Smith. He had the great stat line earlier in the week. In their win earlier in the week, Braden Smith last night, 9 points, 13 assists, 5 steals. Hello. Really a glue guy in the 90-72 win over USC that moves Purdue to 11-2. And you can't say enough about Matt Painter as the coach, right, Jason?
Oh, no doubt. For him losing all the guys he lost last year, all the grief he took with not getting to the Final Four, and he finally gets there last year, and to have a comeback with this team, had to bring in some new parts, things like that. No Edey. Probably playing a little bit different style of play. He's been tremendous at Purdue. And how about the other side of the state? The axe finally comes down on Mike Woodson. The speculation has already started. Dusty May was in the building today, who I said on this show last year should have been the Indiana coach last year, should have made the move. Another name to keep an eye on for that Indiana job. Could Mick Cronin potentially be a candidate to go back to India? He's got a lot of Midwestern roots. I mean, 2 names to keep an eye on. And of course, Dusty May with the I love Michigan comment after the game.
And again, he was the Florida Atlantic coach for the Final Four. He's a former manager on the Indiana team and with Bob Knight, and he's a native of Indiana. I like what Matt Zemek, we reference him again. He said to us a couple weeks ago, Brad Stevens is the real wild card out of the Celtic front office, the former Butler coach, national runner-up a couple of times at Butler, Indiana through and through. They could do a lot worse. I mean, I've seen the different pundits that are all around college basketball listing names. You mentioned Cronin or TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State. Who would be some of the other names that might interest Indiana? Brad Stevens might be a better name than any of those. You're going to find out in a hurry. Does he really want to come back to coaching and try to resurrect Indiana as an Indiana guy? Stay tuned. And look, they've tried it with Tom Crean, who came from Marquette. They tried it with Archie Miller, who had been at Dayton. They then went the Bob Knight tree with Mike Woodson, a former NBA coach, but a former Knight player.
I'll give you one.
Give me another name.
A guy that used to be in this state, got to be getting sick and tired of winning 35 games in Chicago. How about one Billy Donovan?
Billy D, the former Florida Gator national champion coach.
Yep.
It would be interesting if Indiana would look his way to go back to the college game or not. So what else? What else do we have here on this Saturday night? Anything else that strikes you? Again, Iowa State had a big bounce back day today as they got a blowout win earlier this afternoon. I'm going to double check here on all of our results. Iowa State again had lost 3 games in a row, and they blasted TCU by 30 today. Wow. Houston won at Colorado up near the top. The surprise team right now might be Kansas State, who beat Kansas in the revenge game. They lost to Kansas about 2 weeks ago. And now they come back in to Manhattan and beat Kansas. So now K-State has won at Iowa State back last Saturday and now gets a win over Kansas earlier today. And the Arizona-Texas Tech game is underway in the first half. Really a battle at the top of the Big 12 with Arizona 10-1, Texas Tech 9-2. Arizona has a 24-18 lead with about 7 minutes to go in the first half of that one. That's going to be fun for us to watch when we get off the air. Again, if you're listening on podcast, you know that result. But Caleb Love and Arizona, they have been riding high after he made the midcourt shot to force the overtime and beat Iowa State. And now they have put together a couple more wins since then, including beating Arizona State. And now they're battling Texas Tech, a team that has won at Houston, that won midweek over Baylor. This will be a fascinating game to play out here. Yep. The Red Raiders, by the way, Jason, are one of 2 Power 5 teams, I don't know who the other one is, that have yet to lose a road game in conference play. Again, you can question who all they've played in competition, but good luck winning in the McHale Center while we're at it, by the way.
Tough
While I'm
place
trying to do that in Arizona.
And looking out west, how about our friends in the Mountain West? How about Richard Pitino at New Mexico?
Yes.
12-1, won 6 in a row, got it rolling out there in Albuquerque. You know, we're going to potentially be out there again to cover that tournament out in Vegas. What a great tournament that is in Vegas they put on. But keep an eye out on New Mexico and Utah State right behind New Mexico at 11-2. They've won 2 in a row. They're, New Mexico's 12-1. But Richard Pitino's got it going on out there in Albuquerque.
Yeah, again, Donovan Dent is the star guard. They destroyed Air Force today, as expected, by 25 at the Air Force Academy. Nelly Jr. Joseph, the big man. It all connects back to Rick Pitino. Yeah. Rick Pitino's big man at Iona 2 years ago, who was Richard Pitino's big man, low post threat last year on his team that won 4 games in 4 nights to win the Mountain West Conference Championship and the automatic bid and go in the NCAA tournament. Nelly Jr. Joseph had 14, and much like Jason Powers back in the day, 21 boards to go with the 14 against the Air Force Academy. Again, I'm looking at New Mexico's upcoming schedule. They got the huge win, the blowout win over Boise State earlier in conference play at home. They have currently won 6 in a row. They'll play Wyoming, who's bad, in the middle of the week at home, but then they'll play Utah State, then a revenge game for Boise State at Boise, then at San Diego State. So the next 3 after the Wyoming game will be tough for New Mexico. But the Los Lobos, currently lead the Mountain West at 12-1 by a game over Utah State. San Diego State is in action tonight. They are 8-2 in conference play. Colorado State beating San Diego State at halftime, 38-35 in this one.
How about
tonight?
In the Matt Zemek special, how about Gonzaga now in 3rd place in the West Coast Conference? San Francisco in 2nd. St. Mary's rolling up top at 10-1. But how about Gonzaga now at 18-7? Are they in any kind of danger here if they were to lose early in that conference tournament?
Possibly.
Are they in some danger of not making it at 18-7? Probably not a lot of quad 1 wins. But, you better beat St. Mary's the second time around here. And then obviously that San Francisco program, even after Todd Golden left, that San Francisco program has reestablished themselves as a threat out in the West Coast.
Trying to get my technology to work, Brother Powers. Let's go to the West Coast Conference net rankings, where Gonzaga currently sits 12 in the net, but that doesn't tell the whole story, though. Right. They're just 2-6 in quad 1. They lost to St. Mary's last Saturday night. Again, St. Mary's is the top team in the West Coast Conference. They're 24 in the net. Very realistic that both of those teams are going to get in. The question becomes, is there a bid stealer out of the WCC like San Francisco, like Santa Clara, right. Oregon State,
maybe, yeah,
et cetera? Can somebody else be a third team? Maybe, maybe not. Here's another important thing about this is if Gonzaga were to lose another game or two, and they still have got to play St. Mary's again, and they've got to play San Francisco twice, and they've still got to play at Washington State, Gonzaga. If they lose a couple more games and end up in the 4 hole of the conference tournament, then you're playing St. Mary's most likely in the semifinal game. Then you get really nervous, like you mentioned, that if you don't even make the championship game, could that be a problem? We'll see.
Yeah, again, just it's not a down year for Gonzaga, just not an elite year like they've had in so many years past with Few. But and you wonder, is Mark Few again another guy to keep an eye on? Is Mark Few kind of a guy that's just been at that? He's been there forever. Would he ever contemplate maybe making a move? Could Indiana maybe call a guy like Mark Few when the season's over? Big name. Guy that's been at Gonzaga forever. Maybe Few wants one more opportunity for a change of scenery. Who knows?
Well, the only thing about that is he's had some chances before to come to the SEC a couple of times. The Arizona job was open. Wasn't apparently that interested. UCLA's been open a couple of times. Hasn't been that interested. Right. He has turned Gonzaga into a powerhouse program in a smaller conference, and they play an elite out-of-conference schedule because of what he's built. And again, they've been in the national championship game back in the 2021 tournament. They were in the Final Four before that in 2017. I don't think he has a Final Four caliber team this year, especially on the defensive end, but they could do damage again in March. We'll see. I don't know that you can lure him out of there. I believe he's making somewhere around $4 or $5 million or more at that job at Gonzaga. It's not a money thing that would lure him out of there. It's only maybe if it was one of the biggest brand names, like what you were talking about, Mick Cronin maybe being lured to Indiana, etc. Stay tuned. Stay tuned on how long Mark Few would stay there.
I know you do a daily show every day. Give me the mid-major and below team we're not talking about that's putting it together, whether it's in the Sun Belt, the American. Give me a team or two that we're not talking about that is going to be a very testy 8-9 seed come tournament time.
All right, first of all, we have the Memphis hat on. We got to keep them in mind. They are in the top 25. Bear in mind they won a ton of important out-of-conference games, even though they're in the bad American Conference. They have wins over UConn and Michigan State on a neutral floor. They have a true road win at Clemson, who beat Duke tonight and is in the top 25 of the net. They have a win over Ole Miss at home. So these guys are going to probably be like a 5 seed. Now, that may be dangerous against a 12 if it's a mid-major, whatever, but Memphis is looking good. How about tonight? They're battling in the Big West Conference, UC Irvine and UC San Diego. You say, why are we talking about them on college basketball coast to coast? How about both of them right now? I'll pull up their metrics as well. Both of them, though, look like they're going to end up winning 20 games. In fact, they both have won 20 games now this season with their midweek wins. Irvine, the Anteaters, hosting UC San Diego. They're 20-4. They're 10-2 in the Big West. San Diego, UC San Diego. This is not San Diego State. This is not San Diego University where Steve This is the University of California, San Diego. This is the first year, Jason, they're eligible to go to the NCAA tournament. They've been on a 4-year waiting period as a Division I and in this conference where they could not go to the tournament. And the Tritons of UC San Diego, they have a solid resume. I'm looking here for the Big West metrics in the net ranking because Irvine has a couple of wins out of the conference. The metrics aren't great. Irvine is 56 in the net. They're 1-1 in quad one. UC San Diego is 52. They're 2-1 in quad one.
Not terrible for that league, though. That's
not terrible. Probably, though, only one bid. Whoever wins the tournament out of the UC Irvine, UC San Diego mix, that's probably your winner. But keep an eye on those teams because if they get in, they're probably going to be like a 12 seed, something like that, maybe a 13 seed. And could they put it on a 5 or a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament? Keep an eye on one of those teams. Other than that, I don't really know that there's another mid-major team that really stands out as somebody to watch out for to do some damage in March. Remember last year we saw Richmond with an upset. We saw James Madison with an upset. We saw Yale out of the Ivy League knock off Auburn with an upset. So we had several of them last year. Stay tuned. It's always the case in March. So other than that, I think we are good here tonight. By the way, a reminder, I think this is the first time tonight that we told you we're brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Go Sleeves, GoSleeves.com, the therapeutic kinesiology sleeves for the elbow, the knee, the calf. We recommend Go Sleeves as proud sponsors. Go check out their product, not just to help you in terms of being able to play weekend basketball, pickleball, biking, whatever exercise you have, running, tennis, golf, but the recovery time, Jason, from these therapeutic sleeves, kinesiology technology, utilize Go Sleeves. They're also huge college basketball fans. Go check out that technology with the sleeves at GoSleeves.com. Use the promo code TJ. We're very appreciative of them being proud sponsors here on the program. Let's see. Viewer comments real quick. James watching says Alabama, Auburn next week with Auburn off the loss. And Jason, full disclosure, you spent a lot of time in that state like you joked earlier in the show live here on the Saturday Nightcap, this is not the Iron Bowl. This is not football. This is college basketball, and they're two of the best teams in the country.
Bear Bryant and Pat Dye are probably spinning in there. They're saying, what the hell's going on here in the state of Alabama? But no, give Pearl and Nate Oates credit. They have built these programs. They're not just football schools now. It is a basketball haven. They're loving their hoops now. Chris Stewart, guys we know at both those schools. That'll be ESPN will be there next week. That's where ESPN will probably be for game day next Saturday. That'll probably be the primetime game. And by the way, we got to give a shout out to our guy Dick Vitale back.
Absolutely.
Clemson. He was at the Clemson Duke game tonight. Saw the upset, but a big shout out to Dickie V back on the sidelines calling games.
Yeah, you cannot say enough about his recovery. He's been very public with it, battling cancer not once but twice. And we do say welcome back, Dickie V. Dick Vitale, 85 years old, Jason Powers, has battled cancer twice now and overcome it, came back to call games at the end of the 23 season. The last time he had worked a game was the international broadcast on ESPN International of the Final Four and UConn's title win over San Diego State. Some 670 days ago is the last time that he worked a college basketball game. He worked it tonight at Clemson. Kind of a grovelly voice, but it was great to hear him going, "Are you serious?" That famous Vitale with Cooper Flag and the big shots and Clemson the win. And here's hoping Dickie V can hang in there for March and March Madness. No doubt. We're better for it.
One more. I know he's not a college basketball guy, but how about tomorrow? 90-year-old Hugh B. Brown's last ever broadcast.
Yes. Hugh B. Brown, who has been part of the old ABA, the NBA as a coach and as a broadcaster going back some 56 years that he goes back in professional basketball. And at 91 years old, Hugh B. will work the game tomorrow with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers for his last broadcast of NBA hoops.
And I know you'll remember this. Well, I always will remember this till the day I die. Him and Dick Stockton on CBS. It would be the famous, if I'm Chuck Daly here, I go 1-4 set with Isaiah up at the top of the key and let him work. If I'm Chuck Daly here, 1-4 set with Isaiah back in the days of the Pistons and Dick Stockton on CBS. How about that?
Oh yeah, always love Hugh B. I always love the line. He goes, "When you're the coach, this kills you." when something would happen, miss free throws, turnovers. Love Hubie's in with that. By the way, a quick look ahead to Sunday before we depart. Big Ten game, Rutgers, Maryland. Rutgers off of a midweek important win at home. Maryland suffered that loss to Ohio State, so Maryland has the home game. Rutgers won over Illinois by 9, beat a top 25 Illinois team. Can they validate it? That is a Sunday noon game on the Big Ten Network. Also, as I mentioned, my Memphis Tigers looking for revenge with Temple. Let's see if Penny Hardaway's team can stand prosperity right now. They look for a 20th win. It would be Penny's 7th straight 20-win season whenever they get the next win. They're 19-4. So Memphis tomorrow at 2 Eastern time before that Super Bowl game. Arizona State and Oklahoma State in the Big 12, both floundering. Oklahoma State at home, Ohio State at Nebraska. They're trying to get all these games in. That game at 2 Eastern time as well for Sunday. And then with that, we have the Super Bowl, and then the football is done. Are you going against? Are you going against Mahomes and the Chiefs? By the way, in Super Bowl 59.
The Eagles on Saquon's birthday tomorrow.
How do you go against all those one-score wins? If the Chiefs have the ball late, they're going to find a way to win the game. With Patrick Mahomes,
they're due to lose. They can't win them all, man.
You could look at it that first three-peat since the Lakers in the big sports, since the Lakers of the early 2000s. The NFL's never had a Super Bowl three-peat. The last 3 consecutive NFL world champ or Super Bowl champ is the Packers in the 60s. They won a couple of titles They won an NFL title and then won 2 Super Bowls in a row for 3 straight title wins. We'll see. And the Big Easy, Tom Brady on the call 4 years ago last night. I was at Raymond James Stadium for the Buccaneers Super Bowl win with Tom Brady on the field. Now he's on the call of Super Bowl 59 with Kevin Burkhardt tomorrow. My friend, great stuff here tonight. We've once again broken down the college basketball. Again, 5 weeks from Selection Sunday. Can't wait. Can't wait for all of it to unfold as we head to March. We head to the Final Four in San Antonio, Texas. Adam Zagoria also with us tonight. Read him at nj.com and the Zags blog. Jason Powers with the Powers on Sports podcast. Great Super Bowl preview, by the way, on the Powers on Sports podcast. If you want to check that out for Super Bowl 59. Jason, thank you, my friend. Have a good night. We'll be back in touch again with another Saturday Nightcap soon.
You got it.
I'm merely TJ Reeves. Whether you found us live on the social media platforms, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, we're a podcast as well. Podcast outlets, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. You've been with us on college basketball, coast to coast.